This year was above average in pretty much every respect, a wildfire across the state.
Well, the end of September has historically meant we're nearing the end of another fire season. But since the 1970s, the length of that annual marker has grown from 5 months on average to 7. The size of fires and how much they burned every year has also exploded, according to the U.S. Department of Ag. The average burn time of a specific fire has moved from 6 days to 52. You can imagine how that translates to cost of controlling them. Idaho's Department of Land's Fire Bureau Chief told Joe Paris this year's fire season has been one of the most damaging and costly than any other in recent years. Oregon, well, they're still dealing with their most expensive fire season ever. The smoke we've dealt with this summer might have given you a hint on that. But that wasn't all, Josh Harvey told Joe Paris.
Kids are back in school, football is back on the blue, and flannel is fine fashion. All signs that summer is gone. But wildland firefighters across Idaho are still dealing with the summer staple.
There's constant analysis going on week to week, trying to make the best decision we can to put the right resources where we need them across the state.
Josh Harvey is the Fire Bureau Chief for the Idaho Department of Land. Seems like being in a taxi, watching the fare meter. Numbers going up as the ride is almost done. But the charges, they'll keep coming until the ride is over.
Around $50 to $55 million in fire suppression costs for the state of Idaho.
That's double what Idaho has seen in recent years.
It is higher than our average. You know, we generally are looking at a $25 to $35 million fire season is normal, if there is a normal anymore. But this year was above average in pretty much every respect, a wildfire across the state.
In the state of Oregon, there are concerns with their budget, attributed to the most expensive wildfire season in Oregon history. Oregon's Department of Forestry is out of money to make payroll. They're requesting close to $50 million in emergency funds, and that's just to start. Idaho, too, has had a costly year, but Harvey says there is more cushion in the Gem State budget. It goes back to how the legislature and the governor dedicated funds for the year. Still, though, the meter is running.
The governor pre-funded the fire suppression account last year, I think to the tune of about $68 million.
So could Idaho soon be in a similar situation to our neighbors just west? Up to $55 million spent so far, with another about $10 million left in the bucket, as fires are still burning.
I don't necessarily see a scenario where we run out of money. There's constant analysis going on week to week, trying to make the best decision we can to put the right resources where we need them across the state.
Resources around Idaho have been a constant conversation, especially the differences between state and federal land. There are simply inherent differences between federal and state strategy, and that's not new. Those orders come from the top. The people on the ground, though, are doing their best no matter what.
I think our federal interagency partners have a lot of challenges on the ground that they're responsible for. There's a lot of influences in how those lands are managed, and I really can't speak to their policies and how they operate. But I think some of the things that really make us successful, the access that we have, that active management, really opens up ability for us to have access to all of the ground that's out there that's in our responsibility.
So this is the time of year why fire managers and Idaho, I guess advocates you could call them, talk about logging and thinning out resources, because they say if you're able to kind of cut down on some of the extra fuel, especially late in the season, it is a lot easier to deal with. And Brian, I just also want to add, the state of Idaho, they also had a $17 million that the governor signed off on that went into a state fire suppression deficiency fund that was just in the event that this year or future years that Idaho would run out of money. So there is about $10-ish million left in that allocation the governor put out for this year. In case they had to go through that, though, there is $17 million that is waiting in a pot for this year or future years.
25 to 30 million on average. What made them load up that bank account to 68 this year?
Yeah, when I was talking with Josh, a lot of it is about forecasting, and they can take a look at the fuels that are out there. They can take a look at the year that it was in terms of water years and moisture years, and they use algorithms. They use science to work through that and get a good estimate. However, Josh will admit it is hard to pin that down.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe.